It's another one of these videos again where we get to record before the game is even over. It's that bad. 129 to 88 right now, 3 minutes left. That score will change. But Minnesota just completely outplaying Oklahoma City in all facets of the game. That's pretty obvious to see. No big takeaway from that there, but Minnesota needed this win, had to come out and play well, and they played beyond that, just absolutely dismantling Oklahoma City right now. I mean, Tyler, I know we were talking about this a little bit, but if you're Oklahoma City, you're up 2-0 going in this, you have the opportunity to put the boot on the neck. You have the opportunity to just end this series pretty much as close as you can get to ending it. Go in there, rip the soul out of Minnesota. Let's get this over with. But what does Minnesota do? They come back. They make the one big stand here to try to turn the tide of the series. And we're going to have a 2-1 series. And at least a game 5 as Minnesota will try to fight their way back out of that hole and even this thing up now.
Yeah, it was a really impressive effort, I think, for Minnesota tonight to start out right. More intense defense. They got to the flow a lot quicker. And you couple that with the fact that the Thunder, as you're alluding to, instead of kind of coming out with the right energy to put the foot on the throat, they just were too lackadaisical. They were kind of, him and hawing around, and all of a sudden the lead builds up, and Minnesota, for the pretty much this entirety of the game, had control from start to finish. So there's a little run, start of the third quarter for the Thunder to try to chip it back a touch, but yeah, it was really impressive for Minnesota. You got to enjoy that if you're a Timberwolves fan. If you're the Thunder, is a little disappointed to see him come out flat like that. Yes, but you had the MVP announcement. You had 2 games where you rolled against Minnesota, especially in that second half, both times. So I don't want to say the Thunder got complacent, maybe lazy a little bit more the right word, thinking that, hey, we just come out with 80%, that's going to be good enough. But this is the conference finals, and this is the NBA. You can't do that, right? So they learned that lesson tonight, and you just hope if you're the Thunder, you come back stronger in a couple of days.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at some of the stats here, and again, the game's still ongoing. These will change here in a moment. But Minnesota shooting 50% from three. Hard to beat any team when they shoot like that. Won the turnover battle, 15 turnovers for Oklahoma City, only 10 for Minnesota, and a plus 18 on the boards. Minnesota shooting 56% from the field compared to Oklahoma City, who's still shooting 40%. It's going to round out to about a normal performance for Oklahoma City here. I mean, around 100 points is typical of an NBA game, but Minnesota, just an otherworldly performance tonight by the Timberwolves. And for the Thunder, it's just, it all goes back really to that first quarter. The second quarter and then on, all kind of played on that first opening stretch of the game where you hit it. I mean, the Thunder, at least the way I interpreted it, and this obviously isn't the case, but you almost got the vibe that they did not want to be there. It just, they played very lackadaisical. Like you said, SGA took forever for him to have more than 2 points. I mean, it was ridiculous for a little bit for the Thunder. Just watching it, J-Dub couldn't get anything going early. Of your big three, Chet was the only one that had more than 3 points. I mean, it was bad. Ant got off to an amazing start, playing aggressive, getting steals, turning it into dunks, hyping up the crowd. Everything you wanted to see from Minnesota, you saw in this game. I mean, this was as perfect of a game you could play if you were Minnesota. And of course, you're going to see some overreactions of this going from tonight into tomorrow. But if you're Minnesota, now that you have not just a win under your belt, you have a dominating win. Now, 143-101, it's officially gone final. Just an incredible day for Minnesota. How does that change things if you're the Timberwolves? If the Thunder, of course, you could just kind of look at it, this is one bad game. But if Minnesota comes out in comes out in quarter one of game 4, and they start off hot like this again, you start to, I don't know how you would feel about it, but you start to think, okay, if this series gets evened up, do the vibes shift a little bit?
Well, they certainly can. This is a Minnesota team, and I think they kind of realized it again tonight. They had been missing it the first couple games, but they realized, oh yeah, we are a really good defensive team. We can, I heard so much complaints about, oh, OKC's getting away with so much physicality, but Minnesota during the season was one of the best defensive teams out there, and I think they kind of woke up tonight to, oh, hey, we could be physical too. So they brought some of that to Oklahoma City. that helped kind of put OKC off rhythm. And then the 3-point shooting, you mentioned that, to see some of those other guys start to hit threes. Nas Reed, DiVincenzo. I mean, you could go down the list of all the role players tonight that got in on the 3-point affair during the important parts of the game, if you will. So that was, if you're a Minnesota fan, very encouraging. They're not going to shoot quite over 50% like that again, probably, but if you could get those guys around Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle start knocking down a few threes, that opens up the floor a lot defensively, or into Oklahoma City's defense, because they can't just key in on Randle and key in on Edwards, right? So all of a sudden it opens more lanes for Edwards. Lets Randall breathe a little bit more when he's trying to attack. So if you're a Minnesota fan, you definitely want to see that continue going. And yeah, you got to carry that momentum, right? There's no excuse now for Minnesota to not come out strong to start game 4. Now, the question is, can OKC bounce back? And obviously, you're going to see a better effort from them. You should. If not, you're going to start being a little concerned if you're a Thunder fan. Hey, guys, you got to at least win one of these on the road, right? So I'm curious to see how the Thunder respond to this one. It felt like, Cade, once they got down, pretty sizable, it wasn't necessarily that they gave up, but they kind of, I don't know how to describe it, just looked like they're going through the motions. They're like, we're down 30. What can we really do? They
It
tried a
did.
little bit. It just, there wasn't much spirit there tonight.
Yeah,
So
and I
that's got
mean,
to be a lot better.
it was one of those that they made the big push to start the third quarter, but once Minnesota immediately countered that and got it right back to 30, that was the
Yeah,
okay.
it
That
was
that
done.
that
Yeah.
was the run, and they blew it. So we're done here.
And even the push to start the third quarter wasn't necessarily a high intensity push by the Thunder.
No,
Minnesota missed some
it was you
shots.
get two or
OKC hit a
yeah.
few,
Yeah, it was two or
and it,
three good possessions in a row. It wasn't anything real high intensity like you were saying, but
yeah,
the
yeah.
only problem I have with Minnesota tonight, why is Joe Ingles not playing? You got to let Joe Ingles play. You're up by 40. Come on. Let Joe Ingles get Western Conference Finals minutes. That's all I'm saying. Let that man
Fair.
show up and do
Also,
so. That's the only negative for Minnesota tonight.
and this is a small thing on Chris Finch. I don't think it'll have an effect on the series, but it was kind of, what I won't say concerning, but they're up. You mentioned that run back in the third quarter, right? OKC had a little mini run to start. Minnesota kind of took care of it real quick, and then there's a point in the third quarter where Thunder essentially waved the white flag. All the starters are out, right? All the bench guys are in, and Finch has still got most of his starters in. It's like, what are you doing at that point? You're
Yeah.
up 30. There's no need. Take your guys out, let them earn their rest, and get those young guys in. So, and you let them run till almost the end of the third quarter.
Yeah,
So
I think
that's kind of one of those. I'm like, I don't know about that, but
yeah.
it might not matter in the end. We'll see.
Yeah, I think that's more of a kind of keep the flow going type of deal. We've got a big lead. Let's not make any unforced errors here to where Oklahoma City could see a slight glimmer of trying to attack something. I get what you're saying. The white flag was already waved, but I think that's more of a this is how we do things. We're going to keep playing and go full throttle the entire time. And then also we've got to talk about Terrence Shannon Jr. real quick. I mean, 13 minutes, 15 points, had that big spurt where he comes in 7 points in 3 minutes in the second quarter. Minnesota's going to look back to that. I would not be shocked if we see Terrence Shannon Jr. again in game 4. Minnesota might have found a little bit more of a spark there. We'll have to see. But again, when you shoot 50% from 3, kind of like we talked about in game 1, it's hard for any team in the modern NBA to lose when you're making 1 out of every 2 threes. It's just difficult to lose when you're shooting that well.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't win on that type of advantage, you've definitely done something wrong. So, good effort, for Minnesota, like I said. And if they're them, you got to take that momentum, because OKC is certainly going to be, I would hope, a lot more fired up on the comeback on Monday. So that might be, turn out to be the best game of the series. We'll see.
Yeah, I would say
Because it
that.
feels like that one is where it'll kind of take the turn, maybe.
Yeah, I would say game 4 is now the deciding factor because if the Thunder go up 3-1, I would think you would win at home in game 5. Minnesota wins. We've got a brand new series. Pretty simple to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
But other than that, folks, as always, this would have been the part where we talked about game 2, but I think tonight's game spoke for itself that it needed to be its own separate video. Game 2 is a good win for the Thunder. We didn't really need to recap that there. But folks, as always, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell as well. Leave a comment down below. We always appreciate it. Thank you to the people who subscribed in the past week. Closer and closer to 150 subscribers. We truly do appreciate that. Any little comment or subscription or like helps way more than you would know. If you're listening to this on Spotify, feel free to give us a 5-star review over there. But folks, until next time, have a good one, everybody.